Today, we're going to do a first startup of a project that has been over 4 years in the making. I'm building a 1,500 horsepower, twin-turboed, four-wheel drive, extended cab, drag and drive, sleeper Silverado, entirely out of Junkyard parts. And today, we're going to fire it up for the very first time with the turbo kit intact. It's been a lot of work to get to this point, so let's jump right in. One of the things that I hate the most about my new GMC daily driver is the stock floor mats. They're made from carpet, they're kind of small, and all they really do is trap jerk. They don't really protect anything. So thanks to the sponsor of today's video, LastFit, we're going to get the inside of our GMC tuned up. I'm going to be installing a complete set of LastFit all-weather floor liners. And right off the bat, you can see they're much larger than stock. We have wall-to-wall coverage. They're made from TPE, which is a thermoplastic elastomer material, which is much more durable, more flexible, and stronger than traditional floor mats. Now, they're made with the latest 3D scanning technology, which means it's a perfect fit. They're going to drop right in. They're going to install just like factory, except, of course, we have much better coverage. And my favorite part is underneath, they have the no-slip nibs, which means they're not going to move around under your feet, which is like the most annoying thing in the world. With the LastFit all-weather floor liners installed, I'm really happy with how they fit. It's basically a factory OEM fit and finish. It fits perfect, and it's gonna really protect those floors. In fact, this is actually the second set of LastFit all-weather floor liners we have. The twin-turbo 03 drag truck also has a set installed. So if you wanna get the same level of protection for your car or truck, click the link below this video, and don't forget to use my code LT20. That's gonna save you 20% off at LastFit. And in addition to floor liners, they also have some really nice LED lighting. So once again, click the link below the video, use the code LT20 to get 20% off, and a huge thank you to LastFit for sponsoring today's video. Now, we've been stuck in fabrication mode on the twin turbo project for a very long time, between building the downpipes, the manifolds, the exhaust, the intercooler tubes, the intercooler mount itself. We've been doing a lot of it lately, and we skipped over a lot of little things that need to be done in order to make this project kind of complete and functional. So we made a checklist with a lot of items on it, but as you can see, we're already kind of crossing some of them off because they're mostly just little details. Like, I'll give you the rundown of what we've done so far. Painted the core support bracket. We added a few more tabs onto it for the IAT, or ambient air temp sensor, and then mount for the base of the power steering cooler. Painted the intercooler mount brackets themselves, so this is kind of ready to go back on. Also had to shorten the AN hoses for the transcooler just to make them fit in their new spot, because remember, we did have to slide that guy back. Up here, we did build a little bracket to mount a vacuum manifold on top of the intake. And I just mainly did that because this is a pretty good size vacuum port. Not that we need a ton of flow, but I hate it when everything's pushed onto those dinky little vacuum barbs that come on these intakes. So anyway, we'll now have dedicated ports for everything, like blow-off valve number 1, blow-off valve number 2, extra ports here for like a boost gauge, which we will add in. That'll go with the fuel pressure regulator. So we got plenty of spots to grab, vacuum some, but at least for now, the bumper and the intercooler are ready to go back on for good. You'll notice I did not paint or powder coat any of the intake, or the tubes. We haven't painted the intercooler tubes because I just want to get this thing together. I don't want to wait for powder coat right now. I'm really not sure what color I was going to do anyway. So maybe over the winter when we tear this thing apart for some other upgrades, we'll get some powder coat on. But for now, I actually kind of like the sort of polished look. With all the fab work we've done on this, I've actually never put these clamps together with the O-rings, and I am a little bit nervous. Mainly because everyone says the O-ring that comes with these clamps is like a little bit too thick, and so they're a pain to, assemble and disassemble. I guess the fix is to use the Vibrant O-ring. I don't know if that'll work yet or not, but we're gonna give this a shot, just with a light layer of grease, and see what happens. Definitely takes a little more effort from what I remember with the Vibrant stuff, but actually not horrible. Beautiful. I'll take that all day long. I can see what people say though, because if you get the steel ring just a little bit offset, it like really easily goes a bit too far like that. So yeah, they're not the easiest things, but yeah, that one went right in. So this is it, going on for the last time. So we think, then it'll be a fun thing. If this were your truck, would you paint it, or would you put a built motor in it? Have a truck that looks good and is sort of fast, or a truck that's really fast and looks awful. And this is like the finishing touch. And you know, I don't even mind being able to kind of see the intercooler back there. On my last truck, I painted everything black to kind of make it hide, but I don't know, I kind of like seeing it. Now, it's been quite a while since we've had the front end of this truck like permanently together, so it's a welcome sight, and we really shouldn't have to take any of this apart unless we have either some sort of a failure or when we get to the point where it's actually time to paint this truck and make it all one color. Now, we got a few more things that we have left to take care of before we have some permanent installs done. The charge pipe is the next thing up on the list. It's all welded, obviously, it's installed. We have the IAT bung in place. We have the blow-off valves installed. And really all we have to do now is connect the port on top of the blow-off valve to their respective ports on the vacuum manifold. But here's the problem with that. OCD. See, we have to run the hoses from here to here, and obviously there's an alternator and a spinning belt that's going to be in the way, and we don't want that to get chewed up. So we have a solution. This is an M6 by 1.0 threaded bung. I bought them because they're the right size as every other little mounting bolt on the truck. I'm going to weld two of the M6 threaded bungs onto the side of the pipe here and 180 degrees over here, just to give a mounting place where I can put like a cushion clamp to hold the hose. Well, these clamps are rated at something like 600 PSI, which of course we're never going to use. And I like that they have some degree of flexibility, but serviceability does leave a little bit to be desired. But that could just be a learning curve too. And definitely, like, the more you put on, the more it fights you, just because it like constantly wants to over center. But I'd rather fight it a little bit than worry about, like, say, tearing or damaging an O-ring and having a leak. There we go. Just gonna wear gloves. Perfect. Well, we got quite a few little things checked off of our list, and that's always great to kind of feel that. It's joy to me. I get so happy when I cross things off the list. And now you can kind of see why I went through the effort to weld those little plugs or bungs or whatever you want to call them on there, just because it has a spot to mount the cushion clamp. Has, you know, perfect fit, just a little bit of slack for the hose, but it also keeps it clear of the belt, so there's no way that is going to fall off and get chewed up. Kind of our routing goes right up there to the vacuum block. We are going to tidy this up with a different map sensor here in just a moment, but first we got to pull the compressor covers and do a little bit more welding for the same reason. Now, one of the most important parts of a turbo system is the ability to control the turbos and control the amount of boost we're force feeding into our engine. That's what the wastegates are for here. But for the wastegates to work properly, they need a boost reference and not from the manifold. They need it basically right off the compressor. So we need to add a spot to do that. Now, one option would be just to drill and tap somewhere into this cast compressor cover or this cast elbow, but that's boring. So instead, we're going to be welding on one of these. This is a 1/8 inch NPT weld bung, and it's just going to be more better. Well, everything is drilled and contoured and ready to weld. I gotta say, after being stuck in the fabrication mode for the last couple of months, it's nice to finally be able to start checking some items off the list rather quickly, actually. We're making good headway, and we're almost ready to fire this thing up and hear it run and get it up to operating temperature and all that good stuff. So just to kind of get you caught up, I did swap out the upper radiator hose. This is from a Camaro, actually, and it's going to give us a lot more room for an air filter, which we would like to run. And kind of the big thing now is the boost path, if you want to call it, that is complete. So air and or boost can go from the turbo through the intercooler on both sides, out of the intercooler and into the engine. We have a way now to control the boost pressure now that both wastegates are plumbed up, since we got the NPT bung welded in. And then we also have a way to relieve the boost pressure when the throttle closes, because blow-off valves are plumbed in. But the one thing that we do not have, which we're going to take care of next, is a way for the computer to actually measure boost pressure, which is very important. This is the factory map sensor. It's a sensor that measures the absolute pressure in the manifold, hence the name manifold absolute pressure sensor. The problem with the stock one is it only reads vacuum. It will not read positive pressure inside the manifold. So instead, we're going to be installing this. It's from like a LSA or an LS9. It's a 3-bar sensor, which means it'll read the vacuum range, but it'll also read 2-bar in addition of boost. The problem is this 3-bar sensor won't fit where the old one came out. So we need to install this. But to install this, we need to flatten that. The problem with aftermarket parts is they rarely fit exactly how you want them to. So the map sensor adapter, you can see there's a little gap there and a little gap there. I went on the website and he showed a spacer in here, which he did include, or a washer basically, but it looks like he would grind down this boss here too. But the problem is with the spacing of this O-ring here, the O-ring goes down below the sealing surface. So if I grind this down to make it fit flat, like it kind of looks like it's designed to, the O-ring won't seal, and we'd have to put like some RTV or something on there, which is dumb. I don't want to do that. And on top of all that, the hole doesn't line up perfectly. It's just ever so slightly off. So here's my solution, which will definitely get the job done, but is kind of crude and I'm not happy about it. So I found this washer that fits the hole, the right spacing. That way the O-ring is actually in the middle of that sealing surface there instead of going down below it. Had to modify the hole a little bit. And then again, temporary, I found this nut that is the exact right height to act as a spacer. And then of course, the map sensor presses into its new home several inches above the manifold. This is like one of those things where they were so close to the mark. A couple more tweaks to the design and it would have been perfect. They promised a hassle-free installation. I paid a couple bucks extra for the aluminum one versus some 3D printed ones that are out there on the market. But yeah, definitely very disappointed. Functionally, it will work. In fact, it's probably gonna work very good. I hate that we had to do what we did to make it work when they were so close. But at least sort of there's one more thing crossed off our list. And of course, we need to adapt the wiring. So instead of using this handy dandy pigtail, we're gonna splice it because we hate unnecessary connectors. This is like crimp versus solder. It's one of those huge debates everybody goes back and forth about. But the reason, to me, why I think crimping is ideal is because supposedly, I'm not an AMP so I don't know, but supposedly in the aircraft world, which has like the highest standards, they don't allow solder. They only require or allow crimp connections in electrical. But let me know if I'm wrong on that. My big goal for this week was to actually start the truck up, and we're almost there. But there's one last pretty important thing that we need to take care of before we can do that, and that's getting the battery hooked up to the rest of the truck. If you recall, the battery normally lives here where our PCM now sits. We did that to make room for the turbos, and we moved the battery back to this corner. But the problem is none of the factory 03 battery cables were actually going to work. Now, I did get a little bit of inspiration when we had it was like a 2011 Suburban that came into the shop for some, I don't know what service we did to it, but I was looking under the hood and I had that idea light bulb and I thought these factory battery cables are gonna work out because the GMT 900 trucks have the battery in that corner. Now, I've got everything kind of more or less laid out and it's not perfect. In fact, they're gonna be a little bit long, which is great because we can kind of trim, shorten and recrimp a lot of this stuff. But our main objective is to get power from the battery to 3 places. 1, the fuse block to power the whole truck. 2, the alternator so the battery can recharge. And 3, the starter so the engine can turn over. Now, thankfully, the cables are a little bit too long, which is perfect though, because as you can see, this is a top mount and we're doing a side mount. And this gives us the flexibility to route things exactly how we want. Perfect fit. And this is the good kind of heat shrink that has the glue in it. So hopefully it'll hold this together and make a waterproof connection. Not that we need it to be waterproof, but it'll be a very good sealed splice or crimp. And we got one more crimp knocked out for the alternator. Okay, one last connection we need to make, and that is from our fuse connection over here to the fuse block. Now, the only problem, which isn't really a problem, but the only major difference is the 2010-ish harness has this big funky connector that goes normally into the fuse block, where my 03 harness has this type here. So I actually snipped this from the original positive battery cable just because of how kind of unique this connector is. I didn't have anything that would work quite as good to attach there. It comes down to this point here, so we'll just have to cut this to length and we will splice those together and the positive side will be done. There, I get one more crimp done. The one on the left there I actually did twice because the die that I put in the thing didn't match the size number that was on the butt connector. But yeah, actually nice strong crimp still. So I'll put the link down below for the tool that I bought. It actually works pretty good. Pretty happy with it, especially for the cost. So we got the positive side all done now, and the negative side we kind of got unlucky with because the big part of the cable was not long enough for what I want to do, and the small part of the cable that grounds the frame looks like somebody bolted it, if this stupid thing would focus, Someone bolted it in between something, so it is smushed. So we are building our own, and you probably noticed we had the welder out. That's because we are not wasting an opportunity for an upgrade. Instead of that dinky little wire that's grounding the frame, we're going to 4 gauge. I just need to weld a stud to the frame. So I've got the ground stud TIG welded onto the frame. I have a much larger than stock frame ground cable, which is a nice upgrade. And then we pretty much are ready to turn the key and see if this thing is gonna fire up. I got the battery cables connected. I already went inside just to make sure we have power to things like the body control module, the headlight, the gauges, and all that stuff, which we do. But yeah, that's pretty much what our completed wiring looks like. I'm really glad we went with the late model little fuse block and cables up here. It kind of worked out perfect. I mean, I like that it has a fuse in there to protect everything. We routed the alternator cable just a little different, but the cushion clamps hold everything in place, and that's pretty much it. Now, you do notice there is a lot of red cables running under the hood, and don't worry, if it bugs you, it bugs me just as much, if not a little bit more. And if you're paying attention, you'll probably notice my frame ground also is red, but don't worry, we're gonna take care of that at some point. The whole engine harness still has to come out. You can see it's like down here. None of it's really permanently wrapped. It's just left over from when we modified the whole harness for our relocation stuff. So whenever we take the engine harness off to wrap everything, we'll do the same thing with all of the battery cables. And the only bit of red that we are going to see is a little strip on the positive cable. Everything else is going to be covered in black protective wire loom. So it'll make it look better, but also protect it. So here on out, we're just about ready to get this thing started up. Like we mentioned, I have to put some of those heat shrink hose clamps on our upper coolant junction so it doesn't leak. We have to add the coolant. I have to flash a quick tune into the computer to make sure we compensate for that different map sensor. But then we should be ready to put the key in, turn it, and hear our twin turbo truck come to life. I gotta say, the timetable on this project definitely has gotten out of hand. We started off with the bare frame back in the fall of 2022. And yeah, back then it was supposed to be just a replacement for the 2-wheel drive chassis on Ugly Truck. Obviously snowballed out of control, got backburnered for a little while. We drove it for the very first time with the naturally aspirated 6.2 back in December, I think, of last year. We immediately tore it apart. I only put 200 miles on the truck. We installed the twin turbos and fired it up with just the manifolds back in March, which was now a little over 4 months ago. And at that point, I thought we were in the finished, home stretch or whatever, and in just a couple of weeks, we'll be hitting the road. But as you guys know, on this build, we are trying to keep the bar raised. I'm trying to build things as nice as I possibly can. And not to toot my own horn, but I feel like that's exactly what we've done. The only trade-off is the amount of time. I mean, just little simple stuff like relocating a computer, moving a battery, like all of the subsystems and, it's easy to move a battery from here to here, just pick it up and set it down. But to make it work, building all the cables and mounting them and, just the amount of time it takes to build a couple of mounts to keep a cable out of harm's way. Not a significant task on its own, but when you add that up with, just look at the amount of items on our to-do list. There's a ton. But anyway, we are making very good progress. Today feels like a first start all over again. It re-motivates me. It gets me super excited for this project. We're so close to driving under boost. The major items that we have left to do. We got to build some dump tubes for the waste gates, obviously. Otherwise, when they open up, they're just blasting exhaust in the engine bay. We got to do that. Bigger injectors, and we got to put a bigger pump in the fuel tank. There's, of course, a million other little things in addition, but once I get those 3 items done, we'll at least be able to start driving this truck and tuning it. And I can just pick away at the other remaining items kind of on the way. But guys, I appreciate you watching. I honestly do. If you have any technical questions about the stuff we do, just drop a comment. I'll answer them. Normally I do it at the end of the video, but my brain is fried this week and I don't even remember where I started. But we're making progress, and we'll be doing some quarter-mile passes before the end of the summer. All right, in the upstairs office, we made a few changes to our tune file just to get us in business, mainly here. Settings for the map sensor, and here we converted over to a 2-bar operating system, which will read boost. Normally, the stock OS stops at like 100 kPa. I'm running a, side note, I'm running a P59 ECU with flex fuel and a 2-bar OS. I can do a 3-bar if I want. I just didn't do it for now because the resolution gets really, really coarse. Like on the 3-bar table, it's every 20 kPa. So that's why I stuck with the 2-bar setup. So it's a little bit finer resolution, should make for a little bit smoother running engine and booster. We'll have more precise fueling control, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We can do 3-bar. Whenever we get to that point, I'll probably end up converting over to my Holley Dominator EFI, which I have been sitting on the shelf forever. But realistically, like with the ugly truck, we were able to run like 18, 19 pounds of boost with full fueling control on only a 2-bar OS, mainly because of our altitude here. But that's a side note. So we'll get this flashed in and see if we can fire it up.